Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TEDxDupreeParkTV. I'm delighted to be here with you today, and I'm just so excited that you guys are here. Please, if you would, in the comments down below, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you are, please let us know where you're coming in from today, where in the world you're watching us from. I know we have fans and friends all over the world who are turning into TEDx Dupree Park, and we love it. So we have actively gotten a lot of speakers from around the world who are going to be sharing messages with you. And today we have a great lineup. And to help me bring these folks on and dig the precious jewels out of their brains and their hearts and get them sharing some greatness with you today is our organizer and my co-host today, Steve Monahan. So Steve, how's life going for you today?
It's going great. Wonderful. Every day is wonderful. As I say, as long as I'm on the green side up, I'm a happy boy.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, Steve, I know you always have an inspiring story to share with us or a few words of wisdom. So do you have something like that for us today?
Yeah, I try to stay away, but you keep hearing the TV. And my wife watches, I'll blame her. But anyway, there's so much talk about social distancing. And I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm not right, I'm not left, I'm not even in the middle. I'm not in the box. I don't sit in anybody's box. I think we all have to think for ourselves, especially now. We really need to think. But when I keep hearing this social distancing, the thing that I don't want to say makes me sad, but concerns me is we are, as a species, we have to be together. That's just the way we're wired. We came from one. We think we're different, but we're all together. And this idea of separating us, it can't work. You know, you see it now. There's unrest in the streets. There's people are upset. Different things are going on. And we have to come together. We could be distance from each other, but we can't be socially distant. And I hope this thing ends soon, because this is just, our species can't go on. We're made to be one. We only thrive and grow like the plants, the universe, the animals, when we're working cohesive as one. And I'll just say, like this TEDx, there's 100 or more of us with all the people involved. I may have started it, but this wouldn't be here without this team. We need a whole group of people working socially together. And so I would just say let's start talking more about maybe physical distance for a while, but not social distance. That's all I wanted to interject.
Well, I love that. And that is so true. And while I've been physically distant from a lot of people now for quite a few months, actually since, just quite a few months, let's just say, leave it at that. But I don't feel disconnected at all. I feel very connected, socially connected through
Right.
the social platforms, as well as I'm constantly on video meetings with people all over the place. And so I've been living in this virtual world essentially for quite a long time. And so it's very natural for me, and I'm loving it very much. And I see, as you're saying, there's forces driving us apart. But at the same time, the world's gotten so much smaller. People who weren't connecting with old friends and family members now know they can do that easily. And they've, in some cases, been sort of forced to adopt talking to people on video. And I think it's brought so many people together that never would have spoken at all.
I agree. I mean, and actually being in the homes, we're becoming more social with our own families. You know, the kids are eating together. There's just so much going on. You know, it's the old yin and the yang. There's always a trade-off. So what I'm trying to point out is the politicians are trying to distance, but what you said, the people are coming together despite them. and we can be physically distant, but not socially distant. And that's what we're doing right here. We are physically not connected, but socially we are connected through these new channels and new mediums. And it's, it's just a slight distinction, but it can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. And, one of the things that excites me so much about being on the TEDx Dupree Park team is that we've gone out into the world. We had over 200 applications of people who wanted to speak on the TEDx stage. And it was really hard to whittle them down and to say, oh, yes and no, and yes and no. And, it was like putting together a beautiful blanket that we weaved it together. The speaker is going to speak about this, and this one will speak about this. Big topics that the team was very passionate about and curious about. And so I'm glad that we're going to be able to hear from one of our speakers today.
Right. It's been an exciting time doing this.
Yeah, and we had a physical event scheduled for May, and so that hasn't happened. But we're moving forward with this virtual format, which has made us be more creative. Speaking of, just having to change your plans, so it's made us be a lot more creative. And with that, we're able to bring to the world our speakers in a different format, in a different way. And so let's go ahead and bring up our first speaker today, and let's hear from the amazing Sean Lee. So let me tell you a little bit about Sean Lee. So if you live your life based on what other people will think or say, you make really boring decisions. That's one of Sean Lee's main mantras. Her talk at TEDx will be about answering that call. It was this mantra that inspired Sean Lee's mission to unshame sex. She's the creator and host of the wildly popular Two Wild Orchids podcast, where nothing is off limits. Sean Lee wants you to know that you can and should cut the ties that bind you. As an award-winning CEO, Sean Lee knows how to zig while everyone else zags. She's a self-proclaimed girly girl, and she scaled up her startup construction company to more than $10 million. She had a feature in Forbes and a coveted spot on the Inc. 500. Today, not only is she the host of Two Wild Orchids, but she's also available on Alexa and Google Home as a skill. You'll have to check that one out. We'll have to ask her a little bit more about that. And you can tune into Sean Lee's Learning to Love program every day as she shows you how to love you and the people around you a whole lot more. So with that, let's bring on Sean Lee. Here you go. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sean Lee.
Thank you for having me, Gina.
Oh boy, you got that wonderful podcast voice going on here. I love it. I love the microphone. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. I like your camera. So I'm a little camera envy. You can have some mic envy. It will be great.
Exactly. Well, Steve, did you have any questions for Sean Lee? If not, I'll just barrel right in. I've known her for several years. She's one of those, every now and then you meet a person that when you meet them, you're just like, wow, I just think you're wonderful and amazing. And I just love you to death. I want to know you more. So that's kind of
That's how I feel about you.
So we've got this magic love fest going on here, Steve, but would you like to ask some questions of Sean Lee?
Yeah, I do. If you don't mind, I want to jump in on that. I want to ask you, of all the different things that you're doing, you're in animal welfare, a podcaster, you've had your own businesses. I hesitate to use the word successful because success means different to a lot of people. But what I mean is, I think a successful person is doing what they're called for and doing what they want. And they just happen to excel at, they found their genius and they're excelling at it. So I think you found your genius in excelling. So I'd like you to share that. Of all the things you're doing, what is the one that has the most passion for you right now? But first, I have one question.
Okay.
I absolutely love your name. I'm Irish and it has the Sean comes out of it, but then the Lee throws me. Tell me the background of that name. What's
my mom was a hippie. It's a great question, by the way. So the first half is Irish, Sean, and the second half is Hawaiian, the Lee. And I'm a Puerto Rican Jew. I mean, I got I got nothing. I got nothing. So I'm a Puerto Rican Jew, and I don't know. She liked letters. She liked vowels. Sean Lee. They had a family fight and compromised, and that's all I got.
Okay. Well, it's cool. Since I saw your name, there's just something attracted me about it. So now I know.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now,
All right.
how about going into, again, as I said, that one question? What's the one passion? What's the thing that really fires you up and makes you feel like you're just, it's good to be alive today?
Well, it's interesting. I appreciate the question, because the way that you started your story was perfect. And I took a couple of notes as you were talking, because you said, you're not in anybody else's box, and you don't want to be separated, and you want to unite people. And essentially, if I have to think about what fires me up, it's the same mission, right? I just do it differently, because for me, I want to redefine appropriate conversations. You talked about the weather, and I love that, because I use that analogy all the time. You talked about the sun and the earth and how we're all connected. And for me, when I think about sex, and I think about sex a lot, okay, when I think about it, though, I think about it in that same context, because we need air and water and sun and everything for this earth and our people to thrive. And we still, on the same platform, need sex for our species to survive. And I don't understand why one conversation is shameful and the other isn't. And so when I think about what fires me up and what gets me going and why I do what I do and why I talk about the things that I talk about, it's because sex is such a natural part of being. It is as natural for us as the sunshine. So my talk, when we do TEDxDupree, is called Unshaming Sex, Seeding Greatness in Women, because I think that, and I know this to be true of many women that I know, and many women who write to me on the podcast, they absolutely are ashamed of how they feel sexually, what they want, what they desire, what they want to do. And that same fear that translates in the bedroom translates to out of the bedroom. The same way that sun keeps us alive, so does sex, and it's very closely connected. The same way that someone gets motivated to speak up in a boardroom is the same motivation that it requires for them to speak up in the bedroom. So when I think about how I want to change the world and what kind of dent I want to make, I want to redefine appropriate conversations, because it has to be okay. It has to be okay to connect with someone. You talked about social distancing, and I think we socially distanced long before we gave ourselves permission to socially distance. We told ourselves it wasn't okay to feel how we felt. We told ourselves it wasn't okay to want what we want. We told ourselves it wasn't okay to think about the things we were thinking about. And all we ended up doing was beating the hell out of ourselves on the inside. I watched your StreamYard with Josh Ludlam, and he talked about that voice inside that beats you up. And that's what I want to redefine. I think if we can take all of our conversations and unshame them like the weather, we're going to find a population of people who have a lot to say and a lot of things that they want to do. So that's what fires me up.
Wow. That's interesting. A couple things that you just said. I teach the Tao Te Ching.
Mm-hmm. I'm very familiar with it.
Yin and the Yang.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the philosophies, and it's kind of odd for me, but it is a feminine philosophy. It is the only of them that is feminine based versus masculine based. And I think what happened is the way I figured it out of what you're talking about is when the religions came in, they were written by men, they were dominant religions, the control.
Yeah. Where
the feminine is in the yin and yang, it's the yin, and that is the mother, that's the birthing. And the whole world came out of the feminine.
Yes.
And then the yang side is the control side.
Mm-hmm.
So one is the creative side and one is the control. And we're living in the control age, but it's really the feminine is, and I hope we come back to that, and we can, and we need to. And if we can change that philosophy and get into that, it would change so many things, that the world could start to be creative again. Because this idea of controlling everything, we see it, it's not working. It's collapsing around us. So we need the feminine. So in a way, it ties, I'm trying to try to explain it, but to me, it ties in. I'm perfectly comfortable with what you're saying.
Oh, well, thank you.
I was in corporate too, and it was men I was involved. It wasn't until I left corporate after dying and coming back, and I started a nonprofit and was animal rescue, and I know you're involved in that.
Mhm.
Well, we had 100 volunteers or more, and it was quite interesting to me. Like 97 were women, and so I wound up coaching because of that, and I saw what you said. They didn't have the confidence
Mhm.
that the men had. Now, the men had overconfidence, but they didn't have it that they should have. And so I got in teaching women to try to bring that yang side over.
Mhm.
Keep the yin, don't throw it away, but bring that yang over to be in balance.
Well, Steve, you make a strong point, because if you think about just in the terms of, I love that yin and yang discussion. Little girls are told, act like a lady. Don't sit that way. Make sure you don't sit with your legs open. Little boys are told, boys will be boys. They're given that opportunity to expand in all of those directions. But little girls are told, this is the box you're supposed to fit in. And I'm here to redefine that. I don't think that's okay. I
Right.
think that when you think about how we're formed in the womb, we are every bit of identical up until the time our genitalia is formed. But we come into this world as just bright light beings, not designed to be controlled by anybody, but 100% sensual, sexual, open, loving, light beings. It has to be okay to want to be you no matter what. It has to be. And I think the reason that women volunteer more than men, and why you see the difference in corporate, is because in corporate America, women are taught, I was one of those women, how to play like boys. We weren't taught how to be women in that space and still be successful.
Right.
So I think that's why you see the difference in volunteer work, where we can go and be airy-fairy and be ourselves. But if we bring that beautiful feminism to us and bring it to work, you're going to find a whole different world out there.
Have you read Think and Grow Rich? I'm sure.
I have, yes.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I was kind of like, wow, this is interesting. But I read it probably starting 40 years ago. And let's say there's 11 chapters.
Mhm.
Well, one of them is on sex,
Sexual transmutation.
business book. But the point was, he was saying of all the most successful people in the world, there is a drive. There is that. If you took away the word sex and you put energy, it would make sense. We are energy beings. So how could we hold back our energy? How can we be creative without energy? I mean, so how could we be here without? So this idea, again, as I say, it gets kind of back for nefarious reasons, but I think that's changing.
You know what? Our sexual energy is the most powerful energy on the planet, and that's why it's in that book. In honor of, today is National Orgasm Day. That is the closest time you are. And that I don't think any of it's shameful. And so, yeah, I want to be able to open those dialogues and have those tough conversations.
Right. I've studied Kundalini yoga also.
Yeah, another one.
Same thing, that the energy arises through us, and it just, if we finally reach that stage, it bursts through all the chakras, and it's the energy of life, and that's what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And this is, from the mystics, they're teaching it.
All right. I think I'm so excited to hear you say that, because for me, stepping on the stage in Georgia, where, it's going to be a good time. I don't have a desire to offend anyone, but I do have a desire to maybe shake the world a little bit. Go, what if we looked at it through a different lens and a different filter, and one that isn't so hard and shameful?
Right. Right. Get out of the boxes we're in.
Just a little bit.
Well, that's one of the things that we're so interested in hearing from you about, Sean Lee. And our TEDx is going to be a little edgy. We have a speaker who's going to talk about death and dying and how that needs to be a conversation that's elevated. And Lynn Sherwood Humphreys is going to be speaking about that. And so I remember in the planning committee meetings, we were saying, okay, so we're gonna really be pushing the edge in Woodstock, Georgia here, talking about sex, talking about dying, talking about suicide. We have a speaker who's speaking about suicide of her teenage son, and so there are a lot of things. And it reminded me that we met at a TEDx. So
Yes,
one
we
of our
did.
other speakers is Terry Brock, who is my partner, and so he was speaking at TEDx Boca Raton. And goodness, what was that? 2014? It's been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we met you there.
For sure.
was
And
a-
now look
that
at us.
So you're getting conversations really stirred up out there in the comments. You mentioned
good.
Josh earlier, and so Josh chimed in a little bit here.
He's
so
awesome.
good. Would you like to comment on that, Sean Lee?
He's awesome. Josh is an amazing being. We've connected because we met through this TEDx, and he's just an amazing, smart, light being, and I love spending time with him.
Yeah, our stage is filled, it's going to be filled, and our shows are filled with thoughtful, smart people who are
People need
seeing
to follow
great.
him. He's got a lot of really great things to say.
Well, and he was on an episode a few episodes back. Lynn Sherwood Humphreys and Terry Brock were on past episodes too. So yeah, if you guys want to hear some of those TEDx, just go to the Facebook TEDx and you'll be able to find us on the different videos. So that's good. So Sean Lee, you can't leave here. We're all, a big part of what brings the TEDx Dupree Park people together is loving animals. And last I was visiting with you, you had a whole menagerie.
I still do.
and I know you're very passionate about the place that your experience of adopting your most recent dog. Could you just talk about that a little bit? And I know you're a big fan of that facility. We'd love to give them
yes,
some
give them big props. They're in Florida. They're called Big Dog Ranch Rescue. And I got Prince Charming from them. He is a French bulldog. He was rescued off a Chinese food slaughter meat truck. He was supposed to be somebody's dinner. And there were 1,305 dogs on that truck, and Charming was one of them. And Big Dog Ranch Rescue brought him over, and he's lived with us. It's actually almost his year anniversary as well. And he probably wouldn't have made a very good meal back then. He was kind of skinny and miserable. Now they'd really enjoy him. He'd be a good stir fry. But I can't imagine anyone mistreating this just little light being. He every day he wakes up with this attitude that every day is awesome. It's like, you can just tell he knew what not living a great life was. And so every day he wakes up and he's like, oh my God, we get to live here. Mom gave us ice. It's the best day ever. He doesn't care. He's so happy to be. He's just happy to be. And so, I can't say enough good things about Big Dog Ranch Rescue in South Florida, because there's like 33 acres and the dogs have their own pools and their own rooms and their own, it's just amazing. Everyone should adopt.
And to this, a point that I'm very passionate about, and that is, I say, don't buy, adopt, save a life, adopt. I mean, you could have gone out there and you wanted a French bulldog. You could have gone to the best breeder in the country or in the world and gotten why did you decide to adopt?
So I had a French bulldog, and he needed another friend. We'd lost our pack. They kind of all aged out, and unfortunately Smash was significantly younger. And so they all aged out, and I wanted somebody Smash sized. So we have Smash Crash Boom, and that's his attitude. And then we have Prince Charming, and that's his attitude. And I have two cats, and one we bought years ago and one we rescued. And rescue animals just seem like they're just happier beings. They're so appreciative to be in a loving home. I will never shop again after those two.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Hear that, guys. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are breeders, and I love you guys, and I know there's a need. I know there's a need for that. But I'd just like to invite people and let you know, as Sean Lee's making the point, we were very focused when I lived in Woodstock on getting a pug. We love Men in Black, and we wanted a pug. And so I waited for a few years for our local shelter to have a pug. I was on the list. I would call them every few months. Do you have a pug? Do you have a pug? Finally, they got a pug. We adopted that pug, and it was a fantastic experience. So, and you don't usually have to wait for years. There's so many different options through different websites and different rescues. So I'm glad that we're bringing that point to light, because it's really, really key.
Me too. Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, Sean Lee, thank you so much. We're going to let you get back to National Orgasm Day. I mean, my goodness.
I got a lot to do today. It's National Orgasm Day. Okay. I haven't even gotten started yet. Jesus. Yeah, I got things to do.
All righty. Thank you so much. Great to see you. And I'll see you around. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see here. All right. So Steve, yeah. So good to hear more about animal rescue, right?
Yeah, and she's in it. I can't tell you how many blogs that I wrote through the years, and always at the bottom it would be adopt, don't shop. And I'm with you. I mean, I'm not against the shelters that euthanize 2 million now, or the breeders that do it. But let's just focus. There's alternatives. And you're so right. I mean, I've got 3 now. One of ours just died. But they know when they're in a good home. They know when they're in a good spot. And they immediately adapt. I pick them up and put them on the seat next to me. And they were panicked in that shelter. And as soon as they got out, they just like came to life again. They forget immediately. They're not like us that carry baggage for years. They just live in the moment. There's so much that we can learn from by just watching the animals of how they adapt to life. And it's the Tao Te Ching, the same thing. They go with the flow of it, and they're just happy whichever way it takes them.
Yes, exactly. Well, a big part of being a pet owner is to be a good coach for your pet sometimes.
Mhm.
And a big part of our TEDx program is that all of our speakers are paired up with a volunteer coach who comes on board and helps them prepare for their TEDx talk. I'm sure most of you who've watched a TEDx talk, you see those speakers up there and it just looks like it's so easy, right? Doesn't it, Steve? They're just going at it and everything's so good. But let me tell you, there is such precision that's involved in getting it down, getting the words right, getting the humor, getting all the points out, all in a really tight time frame. I mean, TED redefined the way presentations are given. And so a critical part of that is our coaches. And so we're bringing on one of our coaches today to talk about that a little bit and just tell us a little bit about himself. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about our coach that we're bringing on today, and that is Joe Little. He's an executive speaking coach who's helped hundreds of business professionals and technical experts master the art of workplace presentations. A speaker of 4 languages himself, he works with a global audience and has a particular interest for non-native speakers, including numerous TEDx speakers. Outside of coaching, Joe is a professional corporate trainer and facilitator. He trains professionals in all areas of what he calls invisible and soft skills, namely emotional intelligence, communication, persuasion, and influence for the workplace. He draws on 10 years of business experience in the areas of operations and people management, sales, and marketing. During COVID, he has started a mask production business and engaged in numerous volunteerism projects. So wherever you are in the world, whatever language you speak, wherever your audience, Joe can help you become the presenter you are proud of. With that, Joe, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gina, Steve.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Doing great. A little strange to have my CD read back to me, but it actually sounded much better when you guys do it.
Well, there were some new surprises in there for me, even from when you came on board at first. I didn't know about the mask thing, and I know you're doing volunteerism and that you spoke other languages. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're passionate about today.
Well, actually, I didn't tell you about the mask business back then, Gina, because even I didn't know I was doing it then. It seemed like that was what the world was craving, and that's what I got into. So I have those made in Mexico, and I bring them up to Canada, my home country, and I'm selling them here. That's just one of those things. And you're the other thing you asked is, what am I passionate about? And we'll get to the coaching and to seeing speakers come to light and all that. But one of those things I really like doing, and it's part of what motivated me to volunteer as actively as I've been doing since COVID began, was there's this nice feeling of being present with the world needs this, I will supply that. And we all have our way of doing that, if that makes sense. Sean Lee does it her way. Said, same mission, but do it differently. I have a totally different background, but there's still some mission we're serving in one way or another with our numerous gifts, whatever those may be.
I agree. I mean, everybody has a unique talent. And as I said, everybody has a genius. And you do coaching, and I've done the same. The thing is just to try to help them see it. Some people don't even believe there's a genius within them. They think that's for scientists or something. But there is that. And it comes out when they're in their element. I mean, you would see Michael Jordan, when he is in his element, he is in his genius, because he's almost like out of his mind, but he's in his right flow. So I guess you do a lot of that with the people that you're coaching and working with, and especially the speakers. You're trying to figure out what is it that makes them, and then how do they put that into words in a 12-minute speech and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of the work that I and other people like us do is helping the speakers see that genius in themselves, but also in a way to not get them too hung up on the idea that it's about them. As a speaker, I make sure to and as a facilitator and trainer and all those things, one of the things that takes away a lot of the nervousness from speaking, and this goes beyond the TEDx world, is removing ourselves from the equation. So I'm not here to deliver my message and show you my slides and tell you my jokes. I'm here because you need something. And I think when speakers connect to that and realize that the bag of gifts they bring is the perfect offering for that audience at this time, like all of the TEDx speakers you have in the lineup for this November, that I think takes away some nervousness. When we move away from, okay, here I am, please like me, please approve of me, to I am here to serve you something. Like, I'm a host and you're coming to my home, I'm here to serve you something. That dynamic very much, I think, shifts the balance of power in the speaker audience dynamic, and it very much helps the speaker. So we do help them bring out their genius and help them realize that they're there to give something. It's not a popularity contest. It's not so much that I hope they like me, I hope they approve of me. It's I'm here to give a gift, and that takes ourselves, the ego, out of that. And the speakers I've coached in the past, a lot of them came second language speakers. That's true. A lot of them were. One of them was his very first talk. He was a fellow from Paris who had never spoken publicly in English before his TEDx appearance in 2014. And all of them had genius. Every one of them had genius. He was a photographer. I had a 19-year-old fellow who started charity. I had a lady who was promoting solo travel for women, being courageous and going out there. All of them had their genius. All of them had their skill set. I had to help them realize that they had it, and then serve the audience. And the rest was a piece of cake.
Right. I really like that. And I haven't heard it. I know the concept, but I haven't heard it explained so well. It just makes it so much different. What you're saying, if we're looking for outside approval, we'll do stupid things, we'll say stupid things, we'll be nervous, am I going to get a 10 or 9? And they're focusing on the wrong thing. But if they focus on the person, and you're not going to be up there unless you like person. So all you're trying to do is help that person. How can you go wrong? You can't screw it up, because you have the empathy and the compassion and the desire to help them. So, and it's so rare that someone wants to help us, really wants to listen to us, so, the speaker saying, I care about you, I just love the way you're doing it. It's, and the TED Talks are hard talks because they're structured, but they've got to feel loose at the same time. So you do an amazing job, and we are so thankful and blessed that you're with us. My mom's from Canada, so I got a little.
Oh, is that right? Which part?
She was from on the East Shore, Nova Scotia.
Oh yes, the friendly maritime provinces.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father's from New Brunswick. That'd be the next province west of there. They're said to be the friendliest people in the country.
Yeah.
If you go up there, you'll see for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, she migrated down here. They were coal miners, back in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve, you said something about just a second ago about empathy and about relating to people. One of the, and this goes for any speakers, that's one of the biggest jobs we have. As a coach, I've had to help people with whom I don't really see eye to eye. It happens. Coaches sometimes work with people they don't especially like, or just don't see the angle. We can't put ourselves in the talk with this person. But part of the job is helping them relate to people. Because in the absence of that, speakers feel like salespeople. And I think we all know the feeling of they're trying to sell me something. And talks that lack empathy end up having that feeling. People talk at us rather than talking to us. And no matter what the issue is, I heard Gina say earlier, these are edgy issues. They push the envelope. That's the theme. And the best TED Talks do that. The job that we have as speakers is to make that bond and make that relation first. So can I speak about, as Sean Lee was saying earlier, about sexuality without triggering people's instant perhaps defenses or repulsion to a topic? The same with environmentalism or animal rights, whatever it is, it's going to trigger some of that backlash unless we invest in building that bond with the audience first. And a lot of the other stuff is just technique. And the bigger job I find speakers have, in my experience, is not learning new things, but it's unlearning old bad habits. So, I want to bring that back to your point about empathy and relating, because it's a job we have as people, but also as speakers.
Right. We humans are we may act dumb sometimes. They're pretty smart. It doesn't take sitting across a table from someone but a minute or two, and whether they're selling you something or they're really having a conversation with you. So empathy, you're right. And it's a difference between empathy and, the compassion. Empathy is I care. Compassion is putting it into action and doing something too with it. So you've got great techniques. We're so happy to have you, as I said.
Great. Well, now that we've built the bond, now get out your checkbook. I've got a used car to sell you.
Yeah. It's in the mail. Checks in.
All right.
Oh boy. Well, speaking of compassion, one of the speaker that you're coaching, Leah Garces, we're very excited about having her on board, and she's going to be talking a lot about compassion. Her organization is Mercy for Animals. Joe, would you care to share just give us a little bit of a preview of what Leah's going to be talking about, or just tell us what you're excited about with the presentation she's going to be giving?
Well, what I like a lot, Gina, about her topic and the approach she takes. Now, I don't want to spoil anything that's coming up, but she's made TED appearances in the past that are publicly available. So by speaking on that, I won't be giving any spoilers. Her approach, she compares her old approach, which was sort of let's tear down a bad system that's mistreating animals and it's causing all this harm. But instead, what she's doing is she gets inside of it and she's able to help and sort of ignite a new, more compassionate structure from the inside out. So if there's a farmer who was in poultry or pork or beef, whatever it was, maybe there's a way for this fellow and his family to keep their family farm, keep the business going, but maybe they're planting something else now, some plant product that is in demand out there. So that took a shift in perception from making this person away from being an enemy to being a potential ally. And that's something that's, I think, inherent in all human relations, is how can we take somebody who seems to be the adversary in this and transforming that. And she'll speak to the success that she's had with that, not just in the US, but internationally with it. I'm really excited to hear what novelty she brings to that issue. I would certainly get on board with one of the things she talks about is, of course, a vegan diet. If I could cook worth a darn, I'd be doing that too.
Well, amazingly, I figured out a way to be vegan. I don't cook very much myself, but it doesn't take much for raw fruits and vegetables, really. They don't need to be cooked very much at all.
Now, if you got a recipe, let me know. I could use it.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you're going to be working with her. And yes, she already has a TEDx from TEDx Seattle, and it's very powerful work. And so we did have her on a previous episode, so you guys can look that up as well. Joe, are there any final comments that you'd like to share with us? Maybe something to help people who are wanting to apply for a TEDx, to help them center their thoughts on their passion so that they could prepare and submit an application. I assume there'll be physical TEDx's one day in the world again, and there's certainly virtual ones going on right now. So any thoughts you'd like to share with us as we close?
Sure. Well, let's hope we have some physical appearances again, because that's part of the magic of these conferences. What I would say to people who are intending to share their life's work or their genius on the stage would be to try to find that marriage between whatever your experience, and I don't just mean your resume kind of experience, but your sort of your life experiences. What are your scars? What are your pains? What are some of the earliest, most impacting experiences you have? Marry that to what is the world or this particular niche in society looking for. It takes a little bit of help if you have somebody that you trust or that knows you well, has good active listening skills. Work with somebody like that to try to unearth what that is and then put that into a proposal. And I think you'd be amazed, even if you don't get picked up on your first TEDx application, somebody out there is going to want to hear that, and it can catch on like wildfire. And if that comes to pass, I certainly hope to see you, whether you end up picking me as a coach or somebody else. It's going to be a wonderful journey. The speakers have been grateful, not for me, but for the fact they got to share their gift. So get out there, apply, and try to marry those two things. The rest is details.
Okay, great. And so just to clarify, you were working with us on a volunteer basis, but this is what you do professionally. You help people with getting their presentations ready, and whether it be for a corporate audience or organizations, nonprofits, whatever. Would you like to just explain that just a little bit more?
Certainly. The TEDx work is certainly volunteer, and it's energizing. It's nice to be able to also earn your living at the same thing that you do on a nonprofit basis. I think that I'm in the right place, let's say. And I do work with, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of second language speakers, but also a lot of far more intelligent than me, subject matter experts, engineers, IT professionals, scientists, academics. These are people who carry a lot of genius with them. And from what I'm told, a lot of the things that I introduce to their skill set are not things that they're taught in their formal training. And I think that's unfortunate. A lot of mainstream education does not include this kind of stuff. So that's what I bring. And introducing things like empathy and relating the softer, invisible skills to very hard, technical, black and white workplaces. It's really beneficial. I've seen the results. They see it. They like it. And it just makes for a bit more productive workplaces overall.
Well, terrific. Well, those languages, 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and what's the mystery language?
Oh, the mystery language is a little dash of Portuguese. I picked some of it up when I was in Brazil 2 years ago. I've always had something was always drawing me there. Initially, it was the Rio Carnival, but when I got there during Carnival time, I discovered so much more out there. It's a rich place. It's a very nice language, very nice people. So I don't think I fit the description of a polyglot yet, but I think I'm on my way there.
Oh, terrific. And so folks can reach you at joelittle.ca. That's pretty easy. I don't even think I need to spell that. So that's terrific. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us and for volunteering to help us. Even though you're quite far away, a lot of us, we're spread out all over the country. And then we have some different people who are helping us around the world as well. So thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Hope to see you in person soon.
Okay. Oh boy, I tell you what, Steve, I'm just so glad that you've gotten this thing rolling, this TEDx rolling, and brought all these wonderful people together, So let's see, we're coming up on July. We're in August now. We're almost in August. So is this time last year that things you still had your application in, right? We didn't even have, the TEDx hadn't even been totally birthed at that point.
Well, I had applied for it in around May. And we didn't get an answer till August 12th. So it was 3 months going through this, but we got the answer. And, it's just, I'm amazed. I really am amazed at it. If you get into the coaching or the spiritual and what we just, find your genius, and I'm not saying this is my genius, but it was just, I just felt like I'd like to do this. And so I just did it. I didn't think about it. And that's what I really want, to get across to people. Don't fear anything. What could have happened? They could have said no, but they said yes. And even when they said yes, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a structure. I didn't, there was 3 or 4 people, you and some others that I knew that I wanted to participate with this. But, you can only go, you could drive to California in the middle of the night perfect, it's total black. And if you have, your headlights on, you can see 5 miles and that's it. You got 3,000 miles to go. So it's the same thing. If you want to start a business, if you want to do anything, just start it. And if you're on the right path, Providence will just take you along.
Well,
Trust.
I love that philosophy, and I know I've admired that in you, and you've inspired me in that regard for many years now, since we've been knowing each other and working together on nonprofits and business ventures and all kinds of fun things. And with that, someone had shared earlier. Let me just bring back up this quote from our producer, Marcy Walsh. I just wanted to bring this up from Marcy. She is our producer of our TEDxDupreeParkTV show. She helps make sure everything's running right, the cameras, the microphones, and that we stay on track. She keeps this train running on time. And so I just wanted to give a plug for Marcy that if you guys need help with your virtual events, you can get in touch with Marcy and she will help you out. But speaking of support makes such a big difference. There are a lot of different people who support us in our TEDx in many different ways, our speakers, our coaches, our team members, and our sponsors. And so I'd like to bring on next one of our sponsors who's been helping us out and doing some really interesting things. And I think, Steve, you're the one who came up with this idea. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about it a little bit more. But our next guest is Eric Duncan, who's a plant biologist with an overwhelming desire to help improve the stability of native plants and the myriad of pollinators that depend upon them. He fell in love with plant life while exploring the outdoors, which led him to acquire a bachelor's and master's degree in biology from Kennesaw State University. Eric set out to use his understanding of biology and horticulture by building a nursery to help native plants, which are the foundation of ecosystems. But he helps them become more visible in the minds of Americans and more stable in our local environment. While he feels that all of the Earth's wildlife has intrinsic value, it is his belief that native plants have been underappreciated and overlooked by our current population. Eric uses his time left on this magnificent planet to reintroduce people to the beauty and value of native plants and pollinators, as well as to show people how they can be effective in helping to conserve them. So with that, Eric, welcome to the show. Eric, how are you today?
Doing really well. And that was great to hear you get through that long and arduous introduction.
Oh, it wasn't so long. And I know there's a million other things that we'd like to tell our audience about you, but it was a start to get the stage started here today. We are hearing just a little bit of that buzzing in the background. So if you could maybe raise your computer up a little bit. It's not so bad that we'll have to cut you off, but if you could stop it, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
In any case, Steve, I know you have some questions for Eric. It was you who found Eric and brought him into our lives, right?
Yeah. There was a story on that. We in February, I can't remember. We had our first open house at Alma Coffee, and they've been helpful to us, the people, and Al will be one of our speakers. But when we went there, I was just kind of wandering around, and there was a guy standing off to the corner a bit, this real tall, lanky guy, and he wasn't conversing with anybody. So I just walked up to him and said, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm Steve Monahan. Happy you're here. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a botanist. I said, oh my God. And the reason I said, oh my God, is this. Our theme is planning greatness. And what inspired me was the old Greek quote that societies grow and flourish when they plant trees they know they'll never sit under. So I had in the back of my mind, I would, one of the things I'd like to put in our goodie bag is trees. So there it is. The first person I walk up to is a guy totally involved in trees. I mean, has this been divined or what? And we've created a great friendship since then. He's since helped me. He actually did the digging, put a pollinator garden in my backyard because I want to show it to people. It's a brilliant idea, and it ties in. We have to refurbish the earth and bring the bees back and all that. And here's a guy that as part of our TED team that's going to do that. A brilliant man. So I guess my question is to you: why don't you, whatever you'd like to talk about, honestly, is on your mind, share it. But I'd also at least like you to weave in the concept of the pollinator gardens and why, and the native species, not just any tree that the builder throws in, but native species, why they are so important, no matter whether it's in Georgia, New York, or Canada. Those two things, native species and pollinator gardens, and how that's going to help replenish this earth, which we are depleting way too fast.
Well, I think Gina made a good point of saying that plants are the foundation of our ecosystems. And plants really define the ecosystems that they exist in. So if we want to have ecosystems that function properly and are able to support the myriad of lives that interact to create that ecosystem, we have to have the right plants in the right place. So you can find tons of plants that are beautiful to our eyes, but if those plants don't meet the needs of the local wildlife that depend upon them, then they're not holding up their end of the bargain. They're defining the wrong ecosystem for that location. So you need to use plants that are native, plants that have evolved in the location that you're putting them. Not only will it make it much easier for you to keep those plants happy, keep them looking beautiful, which may be why you've planted them, but you're going to be putting plants in the ground that the rest of the ecosystem expects to find there. You're going to be putting plants in the ground that the insect life, the animal life that abounds around them need for their lives to continue and for their reproduction to continue. You know, we got this started off talking about sex. Well, all of these things, all of the life on this planet needs to have sex and continue to do so in order to exist into the future. And no matter what you're talking about, whether it's insects or whether it's birds or whether it's mammals, they need the right plants where they are in order to keep their lives going.
Right. That's for the people that maybe don't know or follow it as well. Explain the ecosystem. You know, it sounds a scientific thing. I know it is, but a lot do. But just kind of explain what it is and why it is so relative to us, to our lives.
Well, the ecosystem is a system. It encompasses so many aspects, and it encompasses every aspect that interacts with it. And it relates to us as humans in many ways that I think humans try and deny. We want to set ourselves outside of the ecosystem. We want to pretend like we are disconnected and we are existing in a way that does not rely on the ecosystem that is around us. We don't need those particular plants. We can get food from 2,000 miles away and eat it. But we need the ecosystem services that we don't necessarily always recognize. We need the clean air. I think that's become something very relevant in the last few generations as we've watched global warming and as we've seen pollution kick in. But we also need the sounds that should be there. We need the birds chirping. We need the insects buzzing. We need all of these reminders that bring us back and connect us to this planet. We need to remember that we are part of this ecosystem. We do not dominate it, although we are having a disproportionate effect on the ecosystem and making it very difficult for the rest of the ecosystem to function properly. It doesn't have to be that way. And just to kind of run on and say that's one of the reasons I've fallen in love with plant conservation and native plant conservation in particular, that is an area that anyone can make a difference. That is an area that humans, whether it's an individual, whether it's a small organization, whether it's a major, federal government, can step up and do the right thing and make a difference. We can decide what we put in our yards. We can decide what we allow to move forward in time. And if we choose native plants, then we're choosing a form of conservation, even on such a micro scale as a window box or a front yard, or something large like a landscape scale. So I feel that the ecosystem includes us, and we need to pay the ecosystem back by doing the right thing whenever we can. And promoting native plants and putting them in the ground and keeping them alive is something that anyone can do to make a real positive difference for this planet.
I know I live in a high rise now, and I have balcony gardens. So they come and go in terms of how much attention I can pay to them. But it's been really fun to have my little balcony gardens, and I can just step out there and clip some things off and have fresh vegetables. It's really been helpful. So, and I've been amazed to learn that there's quite a cottage industry for balcony garden experts, and the whole business of how to have balcony gardens. So, is teaching people how to have different types of gardens something that you do, Eric?
Certainly. Teaching people how to interact with plants and how to keep plants alive is something that dominates the mass majority of my time. And it's something that I thoroughly enjoy, because connecting people to plant life, I think, ties them into the world around them in a way that nothing else can. And you've mentioned that you live in a high rise and you have a balcony garden, and it's more than just plants. You probably have insects and birds that come and interact with your garden. And that may not be why you planted it, but I hope that's something that you found joy in. And I know that the insects and the birds that are interacting with your balcony garden find joy in it being there, because otherwise there would be steel rails and bricks, and that's not what they need to move forward in time.
Yes, exactly. And Steve, you recently planted some things in your backyard, and Eric helped you with that. How did that work out?
Yeah, he found the species that was appropriate. Picked all of it, probably about 21, 25 different plants, put them in the right spot, and they're growing, they're flowering. We've got some bees coming, some hummingbirds coming. And you're right, it's just the sound. I can sit out there. And that may sound to some people like, what's up? But, that's something our soul needs. That's the same thing, going back to what I talked about first. We are social creatures, and that's not just us. It's related to everything. There's things that are touching our senses, the animals, the sounds, the feel that make us human. And when that humanness is taken from us, there'll be nothing left. We can't let that happen. We're kind of running out, but there was one thing that Eric said, and I wanted to point out. He had an idea for even cities, like downtown Woodstock. As you walk through, and you'll always see a little green space, maybe next to where, there's got to be 3 trees. Well, you could even plant pollinator gardens right there. And, so a city can become ecologically green without much effort, and that people can see that. And it brings life back into the city. There's so many different ways to do it. I know when we get out from this COVID, that's one thing I wanted to participate with Eric and let's talk to the city people and get things like that done. It could be a little balcony garden high in the air, or it could be right on Main Street, downtown Woodstock, that this stuff is being done.
Okay. Well, with that's going to be real exciting. And I love that. And now I know we have dogwoods as part of our plan for TEDx Dupree Park. And Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, I had thought of, wouldn't it be neat? You know, I love animals, and I thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could, to emphasize our theme of seeding greatness, and when people leave, we give them a goodie bag, and there's a pen and a pencil and a book and all this. But I thought, what if we actually gave them a live seedling tree? And so I said to Derek, do you think we could get a dog one? And he said, yeah, it's actually indigenous to our area, to the state of Georgia. And I said, could you get a pussy willow too? So we could, with the cat people, we could do that. But we didn't get that far, but we did get the dogwood trees. So I'm expecting about 6-inch, seedlings. And he calls and he says he has 250 that he's donating to us. That's part of what he's doing as a sponsor. Well, they wound up to being about 4 foot tall. So people are going to be surprised when their goodie bags full of a 4-foot dogwood tree. And we planted some of those at my house too to see how they do. By the way, one died. Sorry, but
We'll replace it.
But it was 1 out of 3. So, that's the odds in nature. So that was, just an interesting side. I'm glad you brought that up, Gina.
Okay, well, and we really appreciate all that, Eric, and appreciate all you're doing to help us with TEDx Dupree Park. And with that, thank you so much for your time today. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Right there, allaboutnativesnursery@gmail.com. Is that the best way?
They're always welcome to email me there. I'll get back to them as quickly as possible, help them find the right plants for the right place. I started a nursery with Kennesaw State University, which may be short-lived. But right now we have tens of thousands of native flowering plants, beautiful plants. These are not ugly plants just because they're native. These are the things you would be proud to put in your yard, and you would be thrilled to see all of the other insects and birds that would be so happy to find them there.
Ooh, fantastic. And are those market price, below market price? Is there a good deal?
Below market price. I would say they would be less than half of what you would find them at a big box store for. Tried to make them available to the masses. Part of my project was to prove how inexpensively native plants can be produced. I saw a lot of price gouging going as I do a lot of volunteer work with the state and some other nonprofit organizations, and was really appalled at some of the things I saw. So I'm a very stubborn individual, and I just set out to prove that it can be done right and it can be done cheap. I'm a hippie and a capitalist.
Well, you sound like our kind of guy, so that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eric. We really appreciate you. You take care, and if you can stay around for a little bit afterwards, we'll do our little group photo. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's bring up our final segment of today, our final guest, and that is our co-organizer, Mike Sena. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. And what another terrific program. I just love the diversity of thought and opinion, and everybody is so spot on with their thinking and the correlation with what we're trying to accomplish here, seeding greatness in TEDx Dupree Park. Terrific show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, I love getting your weekly updates of what's going on in Woodstock and what's sort of the temperature, so to speak. Business is active, business is not active. So Mike, fill us in on that a little bit.
Well, I tell you, the Cherokee County of Economic Development just launched a new initiative called Be Pro, Be Proud Georgia. And it's somewhat along the lines of the Million Cups of Coffee that I have talked about before that originated in Kansas City from the Kauffman Foundation. In early 2016, the state of Arkansas Chamber of Commerce started this project, and it is a mobile workforce workshop. You really have to see it. The local Canton Dodge dealer donated a big honking Dodge truck. There's a 3-axle trailer. They're painted vivid black with bright red letters, and it's designed to introduce 10 specific vocations to Cherokee County high school students, high skill, high paying jobs. They're just getting started with it. They're going to roll it out in Cherokee County, then they're going to roll it out to other parts of North Georgia. So we're pretty excited about that. And I'm also excited. I think next week or the week after, we're going to have Jonathan Chambers from the Cherokee County Office of Economic Development tell us more about what's going on here in Cherokee County. It's a pretty neat deal. And otherwise, Woodstock's still rocking and rolling. It's always fun to go down there and check things out. Our venue host, Mad Life, is still producing in-person events. So come to Woodstock, have some fun, have a beer, have some dinner.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Can't hear you, Gina.
we lost you, Gina.
Anyway, I'm glad to hear you got Jonathan Chambers coming.
Yeah, he's coming, and then one of the other folks is coming, and we've invited folks from Elm Street Cultural Arts. We haven't heard back from them, but there's just a lot of really neat stuff going on in Cherokee County and the city of Woodstock.
Yeah.
We're thrilled to be a part of the community, and as I've said before, that really, for me, kind of fostered this whole TEDx thing, is to tap into the vibe and the energy and the flow of the city of Woodstock.
Yeah. Do you know what some of the vocations they're going to teach?
I do not. It was just a short press release, and there's 10 specific vocations that they're going to be focusing on. And I'm sure we'll learn more when Jonathan comes on.
Is he part of that?
I don't know that he's part of it, but certainly his office is
Yeah.
initiating this along with the state of Georgia. And part of this mobile workshop is in concert with what's going on with the COVID, in that it's designed for distance learning. It's going to travel around from school to school to school and try to introduce some of these high-paying, high-skilled jobs to high school juniors and seniors, and can contribute to the overall economic vitality of the state of Georgia.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on in Cherokee County, I got to tell you. We are blessed to be here and live here and be a part of what's going on.
I'm very excited about this Be Proud, Be Georgia, whatever this program was. I think that's very exciting. And let's bring that back out. Be
There it is.
Pro. Be
Pro,
Pro.
BeProudGeorgia.org.
Okay,
And
very cool.
There's a lot of information there. And then you go to the website, you get a picture of this truck and trailer. It's quite substantial. You can see it from a mile away. The bright red lettering on the side of the black trailer and truck. It's pretty cool stuff.
Well, there's so much opportunity in Woodstock, so much opportunity in Cherokee and Georgia, and so much opportunity with TEDxDupreePark.com, so that you can help us if you're interested in a sponsorship. If you'd like to be on our show and be able to talk about your business and share what you're doing in your business. Of course, we're looking for heart-centered business owners. We're looking for folks that are actively seeding greatness in the world in many different ways. There are many different ways to do that, but that's our theme, is seeding greatness. And I know that Steve and Mike, you've both been talking to a lot of our sponsors, and what's on their minds right now?
Well, I think more than anything is being a part of the community and helping us promote what we're trying to accomplish. And you, Gina, summed it up well. Their heart's in the right place. This whole idea of seeding greatness and making the most of what we have, and continuing into the future with better ideas, a better life, a better human experience here on planet Earth.
Right. Appreciating what we have.
Yeah.
And making the most of it. And I think this town does appreciate that it's unique. And there's a heart and soul to it. I believe that about Woodstock.
Yeah.
And so many cities are like that. That's why I hate to see this impacting small business so much. We thrive on small business. It's that social connection. So we got to get this figured out and fast.
Well, we're moving in the right direction, and we make it very easy to participate as a sponsor. So as I like to say, imagine your name, your company name aligned with the TED brand. It doesn't get much better than that.
Well, and on that note, I think we will call it a show and call it a wrap for today. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with your friends. Just click that little share button down below and share a comment. We had some really wonderful guests on with us today and a lot of fun. We heard from amazing people, and there will be a wonderful show again tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but next week. And I'm thinking ahead that we're moving to 2 p.m. Eastern instead of 3 p.m.
Utah.
Eastern starting in August. So just letting you guys know, we'll be getting the word out, but we hope to see many of you follow us along. I know some of you come every week, and we really appreciate that. So with that, take care and go seed some greatness.
Bye-bye.